Do you believe everybody that voted Leave, including myself, obviously, and I think you are directing this at me, which is absolutely fair enough, that's your opinion, do you think we are all massive xenophobes?
I think worse than that.
Worse?
I think racism. I think
Racists.
I think most
Amazing.
people who voted to it's racism is the biggest feeling, because when you hear people talking about immigration, it's not the European immigrants, even the person before. We're allowing in all these
Yes.
people from the Middle East, but those people aren't being. It doesn't make any difference. Got nothing to do with being in the EU.
You don't think
Nothing
that's
at all.
And you don't think that's a problem, Clive, that you don't see any correlation between people coming from the Middle East and a huge leap in terrorism across Western Europe? You don't see a correlation with jihadis coming from the Middle East into Europe, Berlin recently, for example, Cologne, mass rapes in Cologne. You don't see that as being linked to the Middle East at all. That's just xenophobia and racism, Clive, is it, sir?
It is linked to the Middle East. It is, and unfortunately,
So it is linked to the Middle East now.
The Iraq War removed stability.
So it's linked. So it is linked to the Middle East.
But it's not. But it's not linked to being in the EU.
Right. Okay. But jihadi, when we think about terrorism, that is linked to migrants from the Middle East.
Linked to migrants from the Middle East.
Right, but it's okay for you to say that as well, Clive, because you voted Remain. It's not okay for me to say that because I voted Leave and therefore I'm a xenophobe and a racist. I just wonder, Clive, are there any other labels you've got for me?
No, wait a second. Hold on. What has it got to do with being in the EU?
Well, I think it has everything to do because once somebody settles in the EU and we have open borders, they then can come to the UK. So it doesn't matter where they came from to start with. Eventually they end up over here. And having spent 2 days and 2 nights in the camp in Calais, being mugged, my cameraman being mugged, having my arm dislocated, being tear gassed, I do see that perhaps not all these gentlemen are quite so gentle as we hoped, Clive. Have you been amongst migrants much? Have you been to the camp in Calais? Have you been outside of the West End?
No, but what has this got to do with being in the EU?
Well, I think accepting the level of migrants that we're going to accept, Clive, is something that I don't agree with. Clearly you do agree with, and I think we've given you a good chance to put across your points. And there's lots of people here on Twitter that are agreeing with you, other people very sorry, offering you a hanky and apologising that you're nearly in tears. Is there positivity out there? Do you feel positive about Brexit? Do you feel positive about hard Brexit? Are you sick of being told that what you voted didn't matter and now is the time for us to be in the ascendance again? I noticed, for example, Brendan Cox, used as the alternative Queen's speech on Channel 4, you know, the message that they always put out, that lot, is hope, not hate, as if all Leave supporters are full of hate. You know, the opposite of hope is not hate. You know, just because you voted Remain, that doesn't make you a hoper. Just because we voted Leave, the 52%, the majority, does not make us haters. Actually, that's just more labels by you guys. We are not haters. We're hopeful. We're hopeful for our country. We're hopeful for sovereignty for our people. We're hopeful for control of our borders. We're hopeful that we'll be able to get a doctor's place, a school place. We're hopeful one day we won't spend £100,000 on helping an Afghan child come to the UK that's never even been here. We're hopeful we'll spend our money on British people. That's hope. That's not hate.